I don't think people talk about how hard it can be to love the person who feels like they were made for you. Not the part where everything clicks and it feels like something inside your chest finally settles into place. That part is easy. Almost unfairly easy. It's the rest of it that no one prepares you for. Because when you meet someone like that, someone who doesn't just fit into your life, but somehow rewrites the way you exist inside it, it comes with friction. With timing that never quite aligns the way it should, with moments where everything feels perfect and then, just as quickly, feels impossible. And somehow, both of those things are true at the same time. It starts small. Something about the way they look at you, or the way the conversation lasts longer than it should, because neither of you quite wants it to end. The way silence doesn't feel empty when you're around them. It feels full. Like there's something there even when nothing is being said. You don't call it anything yet. You just notice it. And then you notice it again and again, until it's no longer something you can brush off as coincidence. Because there are too many of those moments stacking on top of each other. Too many of those quiet clicks where something inside you goes, there it is again. And you don't even know what it is yet. Just that it keeps happening. And then one day, without any big declaration, without anything dramatic enough to mark the moment, you realize that they've become part of your everyday thinking in a way that doesn't feel optional. You start reaching for them without realizing it. In your thoughts, in your routines, in the way you measure your day. You catch yourself wanting to tell them things that don't matter, and somehow, that's how you know it matters the most. Because it's not about sharing something important, it's about sharing something at all. And that's when it starts to get complicated. Because life doesn't stop just because something real has found its way into it. It doesn't make room or make it easy. If anything, it does the opposite. It puts things in the way. Distance, timing, other people. Versions of yourselves that aren't quite ready yet. And suddenly, you're standing there with something that feels undeniable, and no clear way to hold on to it without it slipping through your hands a little. So you try. You try to make it work in the spaces you're given. You try to adjust, to compromise, to fit something that feels infinite into moments that are anything but. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it feels like you've found the rhythm, like You figured out how to exist around all the obstacles, how to keep each other close even when everything around you is trying to pull you in different directions. And in those moments, it feels so right, it almost hurts. Like, this is it. Like, this is what it's supposed to feel like when you find your person. But then, something shifts. Not because the connection disappears or the feeling fades, it's just life is still there, pressing in, asking things from both of you that don't always line up with what you want. And suddenly, it's not just about loving each other. It's about whether you can live that love in the same place, at the same time, in the same way, and sometimes you can't. And that's where it breaks people. Because it would be easier if the feeling just disappeared when things got hard. It would be easier if distance meant detachment, if time meant forgetting, if pain meant the end. But it doesn't work like that. Not with something like this. Instead, you pull away. Or they do. Sometimes gently. Sometimes messily. Sometimes in a way that leaves both of you standing there wondering how something that felt so certain could become something you couldn't hold onto anymore. And you tell yourself it's over. You have to. Because what else are you supposed to do when something real doesn't fit into the life you're living right now? You let it go. Or at least you try to, but it doesn't leave. It stays in the way you notice their absence in moments they used to fill. In the way you compare without meaning to, because something inside you already knows what it feels like when it's right, and everything else just isn't that. And then, somehow, you find your way back. Maybe not immediately, but it happens. A message. A coincidence. A moment where your paths cross again in a way that feels too precise to be accidental, and it's all still there, just waiting. Like it never left, like it was just paused. And you fall into it again, carefully, at first. A little guarded, a little more aware of what it can cost, but it doesn't take long before the same things start happening. The same ease, the same pull, the same quiet certainty that this is different from everything else. And you start to wonder if maybe this time will be different. Maybe this time the timing will align. Maybe this time life will loosen its grip just enough to let you keep it. And sometimes it does. Long enough to feel real again. Long enough to remember exactly why you never stopped coming back in the first place. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the same obstacles are still there, just wearing different shapes. Sometimes one of you isn't ready in a way that matters. Sometimes love isn't the problem. Life is. And so it happens again. The distance. The letting go. The quiet ache of stepping away from something you don't actually want to lose. And it never gets easier. You just get better at carrying it. But here's the thing. Here's the part people don't always understand unless they felt it themselves. Even through all of it, the starts, the stops, the distance, the returns, something underneath never changes. It doesn't weaken or disappear. It doesn't become less real just because it isn't always present. You just know. In a way that doesn't need constant proof, in a way that doesn't rely on everything being perfect or easy or even possible all the time. You know it in the way your mind still goes to them first. In the way your body recognizes them before your thoughts catch up. In the way being with them feels like coming back to something that was always yours. Even when you've spent time apart. And maybe that's what a soulmate actually is. Not someone who makes everything or fits perfectly into your life without resistance, but someone you are tied to in a way that keeps finding its way back. No matter how many times life pulls you in different directions. Someone who becomes part of your internal world in a way that doesn't fade just because circumstances change. Someone you can't unknow. And maybe that doesn't always mean you end up together in the way people expect. Maybe it doesn't always lead to a clean, perfect ending where everything finally aligns and stays that way forever. Sometimes it does. If you're lucky. If the timing finally gives you a break, if both of you are ready. In the same moment life allows it. And if that happens, you hold on to it. You build something steady out of something that once felt impossible. You wake up next to them and it doesn't feel like a question anymore. It just feels like home, like something that finally settled into place after everything it took to get there. And you don't take it for granted because you know how easily it could have gone another way. But even if it doesn't, even if life keeps you apart more often than it brings you together, even if what you have exists in pieces instead of something continuous and whole, that doesn't make it any less real. Because once you've felt that kind of connection, once you've known what it's like to find someone who meets you in that quiet, undeniable place, somewhere deep in your soul where things don't need to be explained to be understood, you don't spend the rest of your life wondering if something like that exists. You spend it knowing it does. Knowing exactly what it feels like, and knowing that no matter how many times life tries to pull you apart, no matter how many versions of your story don't quite work out the way you wanted them to, there will always be that thread between you. Invisible, but unbreakable. Something that keeps saying, "This matters." Something that keeps finding its way back. Something that reminds you, in the quietest and most certain way, that when it comes to a connection like that,
You don't have to question it. You just know.
Thanks again to Colby Walmsley, KirbyBoy564, Ink Harness, and Zora. Bye.